working now?
Okay.
All right.
We had that problem last year, we forgot about the air conditioning, it's right next to the vent,
Yeah.
next to the lights.
All right, so what were the other values on the road reimbursement? We had 135, 105, is that total of all of them?
That's the reimbursement request for money that's already been spent.
Yeah, that's the reimbursement.
It's a total amount right
Right.
Yeah.
All right,
Somebody
and
like-
then he has a project request
Yep.
for $52,000, which is for the intersection of Seven Star Road and Center Street.
Okay.
You people had already approved or requested that project.
Do we need to make a motion on that one?
Or approved that one to.
One motion to approve both projects? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let's see, Claire would like to be appointed to the, wait a minute. Claire
She'd like
Wallace
to make
requests
appointments.
appointment of the following residents to the town's activities committee, effective June 30th, or through, it would be July 1st through June 30th, 2014. It would be Claire, Tracy Guilford, Richard Chaka, William Dunn, and Teresa Dunn.
Excuse me.
Is that effective immediately?
Effective immediately
Effective
through
immediately.
June 30th of
Okay.
14.
All right.
Because they wanted to start meeting, so I told her to put it
Okay.
on now, rather than wait until July 1st.
So there's Claire, Tracy, Dick Shark, and Bill Dunn, and Teresa. I make a motion that we make those appointments for Claire's request.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's see, Selectman Demore requests consideration for appointment to Selectman's representative on the Kentucky Regional Finance Committee, replacing Selectman Dock.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask your consent to maybe continue on that board. I have been attending meetings for about 18 months, was involved, I didn't have voting right, but I was involved in a lot of the work we've been doing on a regional level. So unless somebody else wanted to do it, I wanted your consent to see if I could actually be the Board of Selectmen's representative on that board, which will give us one vote.
When do you meet again on that board?
The 30th of, I believe it's the
June?
30th of May.
May?
Actually, no,
Yeah.
that one was canceled.
Oh, okay.
Because they were gonna talk about,
Yeah.
no one could do anything with it until after fall town meetings anyway, so it'll probably be September. We'll take the summer off.
Yeah, I thought they wanted to take the summer off anyway, so I
Yeah.
guess it'll be September, Betty. I don't know if we need a
I
motion.
don't have the time to do that, and,
That's fine, so I make,
if you would like to do that,
Sure.
that's fine.
You can vote on it, or just give me your consent and,
You can vote on
consensus.
replacing Bill's position in with the Selectman Demore. Is that all we have to do?
Yep.
I make
Okay.
that motion.
second, all in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, review information from the finance director, collected where fees for public use.
Is that what we talked about last time? We were
Yeah,
gonna
you told me to
talk
go
with
check and see what other towns were doing with this.
Between Hewlett and
I
West
did
Newbury and
get, I
other
did
communities?
get some information from Vinnie, I got some information from Merrimack.
Okay, would, you wanna give Joe a quick, rundown of what,
Well,
do we want,
Well,
get somebody else we need to meet with?
we can switch back to this.
Yeah, we'll go back to
Yeah,
that.
I'm
Okay.
just sitting here.
All right,
Oh, okay, right, so there's another fence, the other fence,
Okay,
it's already,
what do you wanna do, leave,
Well-
leave Lee's attention?
that's on the west side of the railroad.
Claire's on for 6:20, so we'll switch back to,
We used up 6 minutes of your time, Claire.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Claire, I didn't know you were staying.
I've been here before with this fence thing down at the Knox building. Started last fall, actually. And it was deferred because of the soccer situation. And so I'll pass out my drawings again. They're not great, but it'll give you some sort of...
Are they new drawings from
No,
the-
well, one
A
of
little
them's
different?
One of them's new.
All right.
It's worse than the first one.
And Jim has joined you for this
Yes,
this evening?
yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Claire had met with Bill, you couldn't make it, I don't know.
I missed the second meeting. They were gonna
Jim was
discuss.
present, and that's why I asked Jim.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
The discussion was they were gonna talk to a parking lot lining person to see if they could come up with.
Which
an
we
idea.
did,
Okay.
which we did, and the cost of that for, if we did parallel parking, down towards Jim's house, we'd be able to get 10 to 12 parking spaces doing parallel. If we angle parked, it would be 3 to 4 more spaces. And the price would be, to line all that, would be $450 to $500. And this is a fellow in Middleton by the name of Lines by Hines.
So that was only for the side along where the cones are?
You were
Correct.
right.
What about
Right.
the other, he didn't really give any ideas of?
As far as the circle goes,
Well, or over to the right where the dirt area is? I mean, I realize we
well,
don't line dirt.
you know, we did mention that to him, and he's like, well, I can't paint dirt,
Right.
which, you know, is true. So we didn't know what to do at that point.
There's nothing you can do about it. So the other place you can get angle parking would be, if the fence goes in, would be parallel to the fence. Like he said, using it as an exit, so they park against the fence, they can actually get out on the driver's side. He said that would be the most effective way to do it.
Right. And then there
But
was.
the problem gets to be still, it's the same problem we discussed when we were there the first time. If clear comes out 16 feet, with the fence from the Knox building, and then you put parallel parking in, there won't be enough space to get cars angled through. Once they parallel park, certainly if they angle park, it's out of the question. And then, you know, still maintain an access road out, I suppose, at this point.
So from, as we saw at the first one, 16 feet coming out the side isn't really gonna work.
Not from what he said, not from what we talked about that night. Unfortunately, nobody made it to the second meeting, so none of that got taken care of.
I was down there Saturday trying to do some gardening, and not much gardening myself, but there were quite a few spaces available, and someone decided that they needed to park right up on top of the building. And when I asked him to leave, he got rather indignant and peeled out, which is dangerous. And you know, our tenant is kind of concerned about the speed that people travel, particularly in the circle. You know, from the old school, that circle. And they're just all over the place. And there were a lot of places where this fellow could have parked, but he elected to park, you know, where he did. There were places on the road, places within the circle that he could have parked, out
Was he
back.
dropping kids off
No, he was just going to watch.
game?
So it all still comes back to what we tried to tell you in the beginning. It was gonna be a tough situation with parking around that building, having a tenant there. If we take away all the space around in front, they're still probably gonna park there.
Well, I think, I necessarily don't agree with that. If Claire gave up a little bit of the fence on the side of the building,
Yeah.
had a little, you know, had some out the back, and then we designated parking for her, and then it was lined, and I think it could go, but you haven't got enough space to do 16 feet up from the Knox building, parallel park a car, and then still have an access road out. It just doesn't work.
So the best is to stay with the width of the post and rail fence and maybe go back behind the building.
I mean, you could actually still come out a little bit, but, or give her more access on the other side. You know, certainly it needs signage that, you know, no one else can park there, because if there's open flat top, they'll park wherever they want.
Exactly.
So it needs to be designated. She needs to have, you know, certainly 2 spots for her to be there that people wouldn't park, and then tenant parking only. And then, you know, I understand Claire's position, you know, we're all trying to work together, and she wants a little more space for the tenant, because right now, all I'm looking at is orange cones everywhere.
Right.
And the poor lady can't even get out her back door on Saturdays because they'll park them. They will literally park right over
They
there.
were right on top of the bulkhead.
So maybe
on Saturday.
I've
maybe
seen
Right on
coming
top
out,
of it.
I've seen that.
maybe not coming out 16 feet, but coming out at predetermined length, that's shorter than 16, maybe a little more space in the back. You get parallel parking, we get more parking, and we get a line of traffic through the place. To me, that's the only thing that makes any sense.
So.
It started to lay it out, but I didn't have a scale drawing for it, so I didn't bother, so.
Now,
Someone needs to
the
do that.
line where the cones are, the discussion was some sort of a fence running down
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Was that, you still think that's a good idea?
was,
You mean from the street to Jimmy's house?
Right up to the corner of the.
We're looking to split, we're gonna take that 30-foot right away, and split it right in half, 15 feet, so, you know, it's really, part of it's my 15 feet, part of it's your 15 feet, but it's nonetheless a 30-foot right away. You know, use that for parking, but, I'm done dealing with people. You know, I'm done dealing with the cones, I'm done dealing with people, and not even be able to get out of my own home. I mean, God forbid if you needed to get an emergency vehicle in there, it's chaos. And it's not the people's fault. The fault is,
We
there
just
is.
don't know where to go.
They don't, there's no direction for them, they don't know where
It
to
looks
park.
like
You pull into
open
the
park.
rulers, you know where you can park, you know where you're gonna put 40 cars, 50 cars. You know, you get 2 soccer games going, you know, they don't come in one car, if you think you do, then that's just not reality.
No, the
And
kids
it's just
go
not
early.
enough, there's not enough parking, so this is one way to alleviate Claire's problem, and certainly my problem. And it's getting old, it really is. I don't know what else to say to you, but
What kind of fence are we talking about?
we're talking about the one that's inexpensive, like a split rail fence. You know what I mean?
And how will that survive the snow plowing in the winter and all that
well,
business?
you know, if it gets damaged, Whitey told me that that particular type of fence
It's easy.
is the least expensive to replace and the easiest to replace.
I plow all that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't have a problem, I don't have a problem fixing the split rail fence. As long as they don't snap the post off, I can fix that. But we need some definition. We need, you know, this, frankly, it goes back to the whole problem since day one. Just do soccer fields and no parking. So it's a cluster every time we play soccer for the rest of the people in the neighborhood, so it's
How many
inexpensive.
teams are playing there at one time?
He's only using 2 fields at the same time.
It's got them
So it's 2 teams? Or 4 teams?
4
Four
teams.
teams.
4 teams.
How many kids on a team, Joe? Come on.
12.
2 cars,
Oh,
well, almost
14.
2 cars per kid, you know what I mean? Parents
Can I
go
ask you,
separately.
what is your, if you had a magic wand, what would be your recommendation?
I'd actually like to see a fence, but like a stronger fence, but I'm willing to try this for now, and I would fix it, you know what I mean? It's,
Would you be willing to experiment for the rest of the season with cones on a plan to see if it works before?
we're already doing that.
You're doing that
I
already?
already had a
happening.
schedule. They're knocking the cones over and they're driving over them.
Okay,
That's
so
what they
you're
do.
done with the cones?
I'm done with everything.
I understand.
If I was Italian and I really liked orange, I'd be okay, but I'm done with the orange cones. I'm done with it all.
I understand. I
Frankly,
appreciate
it's been 6 or 7 years of
Yeah.
trying to work something out, and then, you know, soccer people coming in and saying they're gonna put a 3rd field in, so now we're still down to 2, but there needs to be division for the Knox building
Yeah.
and access out of the property.
Claire, the tenant has, 1 spot, 2 spots?
1 spot.
Only 1, huh? She can't even have guests.
Well,
When I tell you they
if
park on the
no
door.
one's there, she can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But she's been blocked in.
Yeah.
You told us that she couldn't get out and couldn't find out who to ask to move.
I mean, I
How can you?
just tracked this guy down the other day because I saw him get out of the truck. And we took off to go get some more equipment, and I had to go all the way around to the other side of the soccer field.
yeah,
They
depending
don't-
upon,
they don't-
it
excuse me.
there seems to be more cars, I can't tell really, even, doesn't matter how much of it's being used, but sometimes they circle the wagon, and they really just, this woman, she couldn't get out, she had to, you know, and so it's kind of a mess. It's not kind of a mess, it is.
I would rather put a more sturdy fence there. I don't believe in doing the Band-Aid and then say, oh, we should have done it better. Can we do it?
I think the cost of the fence was, did he give you an estimate on the fence, Clay?
Well, when I had spoken to Whitey initially about this in the fall, he had offered to do it for free for the Historical Society, but it wasn't as involved,
Sure, it wasn't as
you
big.
know, it wasn't as big.
Right.
So, I mean, we're willing to pay for part of it, but we just don't have the money to pay for the whole thing.
We need a solution. Keep talking about it. We certainly can't grow that field any bigger because we can't accommodate parking. Is that right?
Unless you, unless you
We
do
have
a
a high
major,
rise or something.
major renovation to that, and that means, you know, the circle or more parking. I mean, when they looked at the site plan that they actually developed, it was 117 cars. So that's what it deals with. You don't have anywhere near 117 parking spaces for 2 teams.
Because at one point, there's 4 teams there, right? Well, 4 teams to start,
Yep.
but at the changeover time, there's 4 more arriving.
Sure, yeah, now they're
Right.
jockeying
true.
for spots, right?
Like I said, there's no rhyme or reason for it, I'll sit there and watch the goings on, but, you're right, it can get that messy, and it's just, it's other people's fault if they do what they do.
Any thoughts?
When we were down there that day, I don't know that there was really any easy way of designating a spot for her, because you wanted to keep her near the house,
Right.
Well,
unless,
we have a sign on the fence now, a handicap sign, because she is handicapped. And that seems to have helped a bit. But if she gets blocked in on the back end, she'd have to go over the curb or the sidewalk.
if there's not a
and-
car there.
If there's not a car there.
So we really don't have a good idea of how to make it so that she can get in and out still, unless we put a sign, no parking in the corner, and did that hot top going off the curb.
Violators will be towed.
Hmm. Yeah, it was you that mentioned, leveling out that,
Right, where
that
there's
sidewalk,
concrete.
so she could
What?
just drive
Put
out.
up the tickets on it.
I don't want to.
I mean, that was about the only thing I saw that would keep her near the house, but you have to get out.
Can you read them?
Mm.
So basically, you're saying the best, you definitely need some fencing behind the house.
Should have, absolutely.
Definitely.
So is that gonna work for you if it's just straight down what that fence is there now? Go out 16 feet behind it and come across?
You mean where the fence,
The good
where
thing
the
about
fence
going
is
out,
now?
good thing about going out back is you're not taking any hot top.
Right.
So she gets, then you could actually plant grass and then she has a yard, you know what I mean? There's
Yeah,
nothing
just
you're
a
gonna do
little
with any of
place.
that with painting because you can't paint the dirt. So it kinda makes more sense to go out the back and then, go from that direction.
Then try to figure out a way to enter and exit all the, where that curb is into the circle.
So leave her parking in the front of the building.
I would say it would have to be in the front, because you said she needed to be close by.
Yeah, and she needs the support of the, the green staircase.
So, I don't know, I mean, if they can break up what's there, maybe just put some brick around, so that it's able to drive in and out, We don't really have a budget for this, so I don't know how to offer up anything. We have nothing that we can spend on this, right?
How much are we, again, I have to know the amount.
Well, I mean,
Then I can look
you'd
at-
probably be talking $300 or $400 to fix the hot top there going over the curb. You're gonna need a sign that says no parking here to the corner.
Mhm.
And I think the fencing is donated on one side, and then you've got, how long is that side? Couple hundred feet?
Yeah, I think it was $2,000. I think it was $2,000 to put the fence up.
$2,000
was,
worth of fence?
Yeah, if he does.
$2,000 for.
For that long
Close
fence.
Put the fence all the way down and put some fencing around the Knox building.
How about municipal fields and water? I'm sitting there looking at the balance for $3,200. I've got one more full fertilization and weed treatment at $1,200, and we have to pay for, putting the sprinkler on here at the Pines. It's gonna be a little pricier than normal, because I guess we lost a lot of heads out here from winter.
You did?
So, yeah, so my guess is that might cost 15, so let's put it this way, it's close enough that if we had to do a couple little 3% transfers, those 3% as we do at the end of the year, and move like a couple $100 on trash into this, that you and the finance committee can just sign off on without a town meeting, that might be a way to go. If you move
What lines?
Municipal fields and water, page 2, fourth up from the bottom.
But we've got about $1,500 that we have to spend on that.
Oh, probably more than that.
Oh, all right.
I'm saying, you get for the fertilization plus whatever to start up. We did start the irrigation system, thankfully, the pump was working fine. That's usually the one I worry about the most, starting that up in the spring. So it's just basically fixing some heads and this turning on of Elm Park and this system we haven't paid for yet. So we won't spend the whole 3,200, but, we'll be spending some of it. What you're talking about, we should be close, but if we're a little short, we have the ability to transfer it into this line item, like we're gonna have to do with the town clerk because of the extra election, we'll do a little ticky-tack transfer at the end of the year. So, we should be okay. If it's something you really wanna do, we can make it happen, sure.
Alright, so what we're gonna find out is what portion he was donating and what the cost
Little
is.
ticky tack stuff, yeah.
I'll
We're
have
gonna,
to-
we're
I'll
gonna
have
have
to-
$2 there.
Greg, are we gonna have to get 3 bids on this?
What's the amount?
Well, it sounds like it.
Under 10,000, sound business practice, as long as the person who is doing it is either a sole proprietor, or he pays prevailing wage if he's using his own people, other people. So that'd be the bid. So you wouldn't have to do advertising or anything, if it's under 10,000, you'd be fine.
So, the end result is,
Claire, do you have some monies you said you could put into that? You said you might have a little bit of money you could use on that?
we don't have a lot, because we're gonna run out of money for Washington Hall, actually.
What, can you, so, on your list, may I make this following suggestion, let's get a final price on this final plan that Dawn is.
Well, I wanna know exactly what the
Well,
plan is.
alright, so let's
first.
go with,
Let's
Okay.
plan it
the-
out.
looking at the front of your picture here,
Yep,
extending the fence down that side, leaving it the width that
To
it
the
already
left.
is.
If you're looking at the building,
Towards the back.
towards the back.
Yeah, so going back towards the woods,
Mm-hmm.
leaving the width that's there on this side, so that we don't lose parking from between the 15-foot right-of-way that's gonna be blocked over.
So,
Go
in other
back.
words, the people who go, the soccer people will be parked right up against the fence?
No, I believe the fence, the parking was gonna
They
go
won't be
towards
able
the.
to park there, but
They-
if we have them come
Okay,
in, they'll park
okay,
next to the fence.
okay.
You're gonna put a big arrow down there that says, okay, so it's
Yeah.
directional.
Yeah.
So there'll be no sign, no parking, so they won't be able to park on that side at all. And then they won't be able to park in the back. And they won't be able to park cars here, right?
Okay.
Drive in, and they can drive out the other way, so it'll be a one-way coming in, or coming out.
Okay,
To
so-
me, it makes more sense coming in, I think, but
So then extend it 16 feet behind the house and across, if that's what you feel. You need to come across to keep people from parking on the house, right?
yeah,
Right,
you're gonna basically corral the whole house,
Basically,
basically, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
okay.
like the hilltop.
Pretty much.
Freddie, if you can get the cow.
There we go.
You don't have money for cows.
Do you have the cow?
I don't want the cow. You want the cows?
One of the high school kids.
You can have a sheep.
And after
You know,
that,
And then-
one day this week, we'll get together, and spend about half an hour there, we'll figure it out, I'll lay the whole thing out, we can put it on
Okay.
paper, we can do that.
Okay.
And then it'll be about $500 for the striping.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Right, that's what he
45,
said,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Signs, that's.
Signage,
Not a big deal on the sign.
Signs probably 50, 75
$50.
bucks. Actually, if you buy the stock ones at Home Depot, they're probably not even that much.
and then whatever's donated, whether it's
Then
money,
fencing,
material,
is that
or
the last of
labor.
it?
Yeah.
We're talking some
yeah,
additional
I mean, that
fencing.
was last fall,
Well,
and I haven't
She
talked to
said that Wade
him about
was
it.
willing to
since.
do some of the fencing around the building, but that was part of the $2,000, from what you said also, right? No?
I spoke to Whitey himself last fall,
Okay.
and I haven't spoken to him since. It was his grandson that came over
Okay,
and gave us that price of $2,000.
all right, so we better
So
get
I
it.
need to track Whitey down.
We'll work it out, we'll get 3 prices, we'll put the whole thing together, we'll put it on paper.
So we're
we'll
talking
make it.
2,600,
need
2,700?
Yep, no problem.
People to
Probably.
We'll probably have to
Yeah,
transfer,
under the state of
maybe
Massachusetts.
$1,500 to cover it after all said and done.
No problem.
That's a great percent,
Alright.
what the balance of trash,
Alright.
not a problem. as long
Is
as
there
it's-
any talking going on in the near future?
You're doing Bagnell right now.
Wednesday.
Because
Bring some over.
where that curb goes off, if you can ride by tomorrow,
We'll put a little ramp there.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
You just ramp it
well,
over.
that's part of the Bagnell project, and again, I don't.
No, but I'm just wondering, maybe
I like to
the,
speak for Bobby because he is stretched out,
I
but
usually get
he's
home.
gonna be doing the sidewalk probably the week, next week, or the week after.
that's
And
probably
that's
the
us,
time,
not the other guys.
that's probably the time to do it then.
But-
But ask Bobby if he can look at that and see what it
You have
is.
to draw it exactly on the little picture here because I'm not exactly familiar with the curves are in that building.
Okay.
It's kind of like with this one here with the circle where you just want to pave it up to over the curb so you can drive up over it, like,
Yes, yeah.
like we'll push it into the curb area.
If you
someone
drive,
just
if
draw it
you were
like here,
parked,
this thing.
if you were parked along this fence, driving towards the circle,
Yeah,
whatever the area you'd need to flare out to the sides either way in order to drive out of it.
understood, okay.
That's a big bump for her. Are you both comfortable This,
We'll-
Jimmy, the other
we'll
one
get
that I
together
put up
Wednesday.
with all
Yeah, we'll figure it
So
out.
the Jersey barriers are out of the question, painted orange? I mean, that's what I was looking for. They got some really nice plastic ones that interlock.
No.
Nice sense of humor.
No no
You could
Jersey.
move 'em in the
Obviously, you
winter.
get that one for your mom.
Jim, will you bring a copy of the plan? to us?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next up, we have 6:45. John was gonna come
Claire, did you
meet
get,
us.
Claire, if you wanna tell them, then I'll give it a letter.
I'm sorry?
You can get sworn in.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Rick.
I'll give it a letter.
Come in, Mike? Oh, I shut the door before. That's it. I'm going in.
6:45?
Yes.
Well, John was invited, correct?
John told me he was coming via email, not letter.
Okay. Well, we could either finish up our,
Needs attention, maybe.
Things to
Right,
do.
where are you on that?
we are at the, we're gonna
Review?
talk to Greg about some field use costs.
Yeah, you got that right?
Yeah,
Now, the
You
reason
asked me
we're
to
looking
take-
at, let me just tell
Yeah, why
Joe
don't you
why
do it?
we're looking. We've looked at these, field use things for quite a few years now, and the soccer, not soccer, the, softball field has been booked between the youth and recreation group, Pentucket softball, and there's been 2 women's leagues that have also been, using the space. We had the lights down here, so we initiated a cost to have games with the lights on. And, so now, we're getting so many requests, the fields are completely tied up, and we were discussing a fee for other groups, other than the youth league and the high school.
Right.
So that's what
Okay.
we're looking at now.
You got a recommendation for cost of?
I just have information for you.
Who did you speak with?
I
Greg?
spoke with Mr. Willett from the city of Haverhill.
Vinnie? Yeah.
Willett. They basically charge what they call the in-town people, including small little leagues, $4 per player. So they charge, would be like charging Groveland Little League or Groveland, they charge them $4 per player.
For each sport that's
For
going
each
on
sport.
over there?
For outside leagues, what they consider to be outside this, which would be people who don't live in the town, or adult leagues,
Right,
they charge $350 for the season. That goes from May 1st to September 1st. They do not charge extra for lights. They have those 2 lighted fields in the front
Right.
there. But then there's the Haverhill Stadium Commission, which I didn't get a call back from anybody, and there's no information on the Haverhill website. But I know, from talking to other people, that it's very expensive when you wanna rent that one out. I talked to Carol over in Merrimack, and she said they have no requests from other than their own youth leagues. And when we say youth leagues now, we're talking, they include like the Pentucket youth leagues that are, so Merrimack has no user fees, and they have no people from outside the town or adult leagues using any of their facilities.
Okay.
West Newbury doesn't charge all the smaller kids as well as the Pentucket through 8th grade teams. They do charge the adult leagues that use it $500 per season. And that includes, right now, the city of Newburyport, I guess they're working on a school over there, that they lost a field, so they're charging the city of Newburyport $500 to use Pipe Stand as well,
That's for the JV baseball.
okay, for outside. So, that's what the local groups are doing around us right now.
I have a question. Is the league for, like, the people that have a nonprofit organization, is that
Doesn't
considered the
matter,
league?
any league.
No, but is that considered the league, or is it all the teams that she has within her group? $500 or
Yeah, was it 500 per team?
It's
Yeah.
500 per team, yes.
Per team?
Yes.
Okay, you were saying league, so I was confused.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a league per team, I'm sorry,
Okay.
per team.
Thank you.
What are we not covering for costs?
I don't think it's much of a covering of costs for us as most as just the availability.
No.
One of the things that Mr. Willett stressed to me was, he quite frankly said, he goes, you guys have some pretty nice stuff over there, you're gonna have a lot of demand for it, you need to prioritize what's important to you. In other words, you know, you wanna make sure your own people have first crack at it at all times, you know, he goes, but that's something you'll have to decide on your own, but, he goes, you know, you have some nice stuff over there, he goes,
That's why everybody wants to be there.
you're gonna have to prioritize.
Are we interested in a revenue source?
Well,
No, basically what it is, you know,
We're just
everybody,
interested in covering costs.
well, it's that the fields end up getting overused.
Yeah.
Then, like say, the kids wanna have a practice and the field's tied up, so
Yeah.
now they either have to go down to the Bagnell and play in the rocks, or they just have to not practice. So, I mean, if we're gonna tie up the field for, you know, other leagues, there should be some income. The Pentucket coach is down there fixing that field almost, most of his
Yeah.
life. So, if
well,
other people.
so are other guys in town.
Right, exactly. You know, I mean, most of everybody's putting all their time into it, but if other people are gonna come in and use the field, maybe then there'd be a revenue that we could have somebody do some of the work.
I'm sure the stadium and the Haverhill League, our leagues, they have to generate some income. The lights are on,
Of course.
Well, the Havel Stadium,
This
they get,
has-
Trinity pays them
Trinity's a
25,000
big
a year
sponsor
as a
for them,
sponsor.
right.
I mean, I'm sure Don can speak this much more than me, I know that Pentucket investigated using some of this stuff, and were given prices, and they were in the thousands, wasn't it,
Right.
to use it?
I would recommend a flat fee per team, if, you
It's
know,
not, I mean, I was just getting
instead of per
information for it.
player, I just don't wanna be the town that goes after families and asks families for $4 a kid. But a flat fee per team makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
We're only talking on the teams outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I understand.
Yeah, our kids, the
No, no, I
Groveland
get
families and
that.
kids are a priority.
No, I get that, I understand.
And also, as these people said, these guys take tremendous, I mean, the Little League guys do a tremendous job taking care of the fields, the soccer guys do a wonderful job, the softball people do a wonderful job, I mean, so they're putting their own time and effort into this. So I mean, I wouldn't wanna be charging anybody in the Pentucket teams from the 8th grade down at all.
Of course.
It's now, it's just a
But there was
question
a
of.
request made where somebody wanted to tie up a field.
Almost every
They
open
had
hour.
from April until October.
I heard about
Did you
this,
get, okay,
by the way.
and that
This
didn't
is
seem
not
fair.
news to me, yeah,
Yeah.
a little aggressive with
Right.
the application.
And they were
process.
gonna finish before the lights went on, right, so to speak,
Yeah.
so they wouldn't be paying that fee. And, you know, we're
So
just trying to look for something that's fair and equitable
It's, yeah, right, it's a
for
resource.
the people that live in the community especially.
It's a resource, we wanna recover our costs, and it's okay to make a little bit of revenue
We're not
for a
looking
few
to
rainy day, it's okay
charge
too.
anybody.
Yeah.
Listen, it's just short fields. When the Pines project gets done, there'll be 3 softball fields now, and relieve some of the pressure, but in the meantime, it's kinda like what Mr. Willett said, you gotta prioritize what's most important to you. A women's league from Dorchester or your kids' league.
Right.
You know, I mean, you have to prioritize, make sure they get first crack at it. That's how they do it over there, to make sure they get first crack.
Or make a decision as to, how many days you'll allow somebody to
Right,
tie up the
maybe
field,
specify,
you know?
didn't it?
You'd have to go into,
You can't tie up every weekend in 2 days
be
during
the
the
only
week.
one that can use that field
Right.
always, you
Well, it's
know?
like, it's also, as Nancy said, it's so tight down there, you get a week of rain and makeup games and stuff, it's just, everything just backs, it doesn't take much to back it up, there's just no availability, every hour is booked. So,
Out-of-town leagues could look at Osgood Landing. I know they've got 4 ball fields over there.
do they charge?
I don't know what the procedure is, I said they can find out. I'm
I've
still
never
over
heard
there
of
with
Osgood,
football.
is that the old
Weston?
AT&T, old West?
Yeah, it's the old AT&T plant. I used to maintain it, I know what's involved.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we
Four
only have the
baseball
one field
fields.
that's worth playing on,
Right.
you know.
Soccer field, so if someone outside the town is looking for a place, they might look into that.
And maybe they look here harder because we don't charge. I mean,
Exactly.
if it's $500 or $400 in other towns, maybe that's why they look here.
No, it's a deterrent if you charge, absolutely.
Natural,
don't
shop for
charge.
the cheapest way to do this.
Really wonderful.
So, I mean, based on the fact that most seasons are, to my knowledge, are about 15 games per team, I mean, is it easier to go with like $20 per game on those teams? So it'd be like $300 per team, or do you wanna stay with $350 or even look at $500? I guess that's what
That's
it
a
comes
great
down
idea
to.
too, a charge per game.
I mean,
Will certainly make you think about whether you wanna play a 30-game season or not.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Great idea.
make you think.
I mean, they're paying umpires per game, I mean,
We're getting paid for, not getting paid, we're bringing in the revenue for the space and time used, and then we don't care who's filling that slot, whether it's someone doing 20 games or 100 games that season.
as long as our youth games take priority.
That's a great idea.
So,
So if the average is 15 games, it comes out to 300, let's say 300 games.
right, so what I was saying
So
before
we
is,
get to
I
500.
I think
we'll
they
go out
should,
more games.
they should bring their schedule, show what their, you know, the team schedule is, and then we'd base, you know, what the cost is on, off of that,
It's for outside teams,
for
correct?
outside teams.
And they have to have the schedule there.
Well, you wanna define outside, because there'll be
Yeah,
people
well,
who
I
say,
just got it since our last meeting.
you wanna define outside, because I'm afraid there might be adult leagues that say, oh, we all live in the town though, why should we play? We're
Yeah,
not an
we've heard
outside
that
league."
before.
Outside of the youth,
Outside of the eighth
Youth
league,
sports?
from the 8th grade and under?
no, it'd be the senior, the Kentucky, they have their JV games.
Oh, yeah, so outside
Their
the
varsity games.
so outside the organized of the town, so to speak, okay.
You like the 300, 350?
Or $20 a game.
$20 a game comes out to 15 games.
So if they have
15
15
about
games, it'd be
300.
300, if it's 20 games, it's 400.
Yeah, why don't we
You
do
know,
it that way?
depending on their season.
Great.
Especially that schedule we saw.
You know.
$20
$20
a game is cheaper
per
than paying the
team.
umpire.
See, actually, if the game would be 2 teams out there. So,
We want 40?
just went up.
And approval is contingent on review of schedule.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see the schedule.
Yeah,
Check it.
we wanted to look at the schedule, approval of the application. We don't just collect the money, we want to
No,
also
I know.
see.
20 per team per game.
Per
Yeah,
team?
Per team, yeah, per game. So if there's 2 teams, it's $40, that's fine. I mean, if we have to start paying somebody to go out and do prep work on the field, it's gonna cost us.
Because we know.
Well,
We
I
used-
think some of those times were for multiple games, because there's no way a softball game would take 5 or 6 hours,
Right.
right?
So they'll have to take the
Usually
schedule.
an hour and a half, maybe 2 if you're really
Right.
dragging.
Well, that's the other thing, when we block time, we're gonna have to say, like, a standard game is 2 hours or something like that, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you have to start doing all of that, because other people wanna use it, and there's no space.
So no game is to start after an hour and 3/4 into the game. No inning should start.
An hour and 45 minutes
So
after
that
the
gives you
start of the
15
game.
minutes to finish the last inning.
Unless you're playing Little League.
Little League.
Oh,
When
it gets
innings would
really,
be-
the lights, they have to be done, start an inning before, they do that down there.
Right.
Make sure that the lights go off by 9.
They
That's the
do.
deal was.
Yeah, that was the
That
deal.
was the deal.
Put the lights there.
It's been years and they still do it, so.
We've never
Very
had a
good.
complaint about it.
They're very
either.
good.
It's like learned behavior, it'll be harder down, I mean, it'll be a little harder down there where it's not all internal, but eventually it'll become learned behavior. The
Right.
first year will be a little juggling and there might be some mistakes made and some things crossing over, but we'll get used to it. Gotta start somewhere, right?
Shall we move the question?
So do we wanna make a motion as to what we decided to initiate this process, so that it doesn't drag on anymore?
Right.
All right, so
The motion would be
$20
per team.
per team, for
People
organizations outside of our
outside.
Groveland Youth League and the
I say
Pentucket.
Kentucky, and Kentucky, yeah, Kentucky thing.
I make that motion.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
You wanna do the 2 hour
Per
thing?
team, per game.
Per team,
Yeah,
per
not per team, per season.
So when they come in with their schedule, if they have a 20-game season, each team's paying $400. So if they have 6 teams, you get $2,400.
Now, what if they want it when the lights are needed? Do they pay the light fee, or do we do it?
Well,
with-
it sounds like he was saying that the Haverhill group didn't charge for that, but,
They didn't
Yeah.
charge anything extra. And if
So-
if you are bringing in that money, you know,
so we should be all right.
should be able to more than cover the
So
light
do
costs.
away with the light?
Like
Only
us.
to them, the outside teams.
Well, the outside teams will be the ones that wanna play at night anyways.
No, the recreation
that-
kids do.
No, they still should pay $25 for a night game if the rec league is using it. For the light.
Because the bill gets expensive during
Yeah, so
See.
games that start after 8 o'clock will also be subject to a $25 per game light fee.
I don't know, I left here the other night at 7:30 and the lights were on, even though it wasn't dark. Cause it takes a while, either they put them on earlier.
Get going, yeah.
You don't wanna say 6, because obviously it's still light out.
So
Okay.
light fee still in effect?
All right,
Okay.
sorry for the delay.
Did somebody second that?
Joe
Joe
did,
did.
we voted it. Okay, so next we have, John was coming in to discuss the, current job description that we've been going back and forth with, so that we can get that finalized and post for a success.
Okay. Well, I'm not so sure it's gonna be finalized, but,
Getting
Well, it's
closer.
closer.
pretty, yeah, it's closer to being finalized. Of, get some copies for you, just to, review them. And, obviously subject to change.
Now, is this based on the other one we had from town council? All right.
Yes, it's a combination of some of the prior job descriptions. And, you gotta understand, there's a little bit of a difference between a job description and a posting for a job vacancy. So not all the items that were in the job description are in the job posting, but there are quite a few of them.
Okay, so this is more so for
You need one,
posting?
Nancy?
Posting.
John, do you have another one for Nancy?
Yes. My copy.
I
You can make a copy right there in the machine. Want me to do it, John? While you're talking, you can
Sure.
click on it. I'll do it down there, so we'll make it noise. Anybody else need one? Should I make a few?
Now, some of the items on there, like I said, are somewhat flexible. For example, the ICS 300, that training is usually for senior officers, and many of our staff have 200. I put down 300, that's what I have. I don't know how many others have that. It's something that you can obtain relatively quickly. So a lot of those items could be, put on a timeline. You must get these types of certifications within a certain period of time. I don't like doing that, but otherwise we could drop to 200, because the chief is gonna have to be 300 anyways, so they can work their way into that.
And what is that covering, the ICS 300?
That's the NIMS, National Incident Management System.
Okay.
So it's just a different level, higher level of they went to the Unified Command Inspector in a little more detail, so the fire chief is part of that. So that's why a lot of other folks don't have that, because they don't have the need to use it. And the other,
I just made 6 or 7.
there was a request at the last meeting as well to have a description for the clerk.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, so I did put that together. And this is the way we've been operating. I just want to make sure you have that. I think that question came up.
Yep.
Do all fire chiefs have
Well,
a
look at
clerk?
that, I have one.
You have one? Do all fire chiefs have a clerk? Do they, you know?
There's they call them administrative assistants in many
Okay,
cases.
all right.
They do, the bookkeeping. There's another reason for it too, is that some of the functions of the clerk, if they're done by the chief, could be considered conflict. Because of the way the records are kept and the bookkeeping is done.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, there was a town that's just recently get bagged for that. Wasn't in Massachusetts. The payrolls were being manipulated in such a way that it was improper.
We've been okay for the last 6 months, though.
Well, that's why I bring it up, because now I'm very privy to that. When the checks and balances are not there. So it could put someone in a compromising situation. one other piece of information that sort of doves in with the job description and the salary schedule that we have. This is compilation of the budgets that all of the cities and towns in Essex County are running under. All right, and I want you to look carefully at those numbers, because if you look at Groveland, I doubt that they're gonna stay there. I'd hope to think they would, though. We had, under the Board of Fire Engineers, one of the most efficient and effective fire departments in terms of money. And that's the evidence right there. It was a survey that was just completed a couple months ago. So,
It's pretty good. It's awesome.
yeah, I mean, we often wondered where we sat in the whole scheme of things, and now we know. And we're not even close, so, you know, I think the Board of Engineers took some hits, you know, recently from the general public or whatever, and as far as being old and archaic and all that. But that may be true. But the bottom line is they did run an efficient operation. I can give them credit for that.
Good job.
Pardon me?
Good job.
Thank you. I'm just one of the members, that's all.
Absolutely.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
How many hours
Well,
for the position?
I've always been opposed to putting hours on a salary position.
Right.
Right? I think other board members are aware of that. Because it depends upon the person how much time they're gonna put into this job. So you stick with the duties and the requirements and say, you know, hope you can get the job done. You can get it done in 10 hours, good luck to you. If it takes 40, well, so be it. The salary is the salary. If you put an hour to it, then you're talking about benefits, not benefits, or there's other issues that come up. I want 20 hours. Well, that is something I think the board has to wrestle with if they want to put an actual number of hours that they expect the fire chief to do. I would say it's not necessary because you're gonna know pretty quickly whether they can do the job or not. It's gonna come back.
My question on that is also on the personnel manual, 14 is what we built benefits on?
19.
19, I'm sorry. So if someone exceeds that,
19,
then we have an issue.
yes.
Okay. My next question, in the physical requirements, is that customary?
Yes, it is.
It's not restrictive? We can possibly accommodate people with disabilities?
You can, but then they are no longer capable of doing the job. And we do have some, or I'd say a firefighter that is restricted, and he's not a firefighter, he's in a separate category altogether. The fire service it's difficult to cater to people that have handicaps, and that's why we have to be very specific in our job description, that's what's required. I'm sorry, that's the job, and there's no malintent against anyone. But if someone's down in a building and you have to drag them out, you can't say, I can't do that. We expect all the firefighters to be capable of doing that.
Now, what I mean by customary, any town our size that is looking for a fire chief could possibly use this job description, most of it, including that physical requirement component.
I got that
That
from
would be involved.
3 other towns.
Okay, that's what I was looking for,
Right
some kind of
around.
precedent. My next question on the EMT, the position I would guess would have to be certified CPR, certified first responder, and be able to operate medical equipment.
Correct.
Why do we need to also be an EMT?
Well, it's something that we feel would be a plus because the fire chief is more than likely going to be first in to most scenes, and that includes medical calls. We have an incident command vehicle now, which is outfitted with medical equipment. So you'd like to have someone that feels comfortable working with people, has a level of training that would probably be, or should be higher than someone who just knows CPR. Because all medical calls don't really just do CPR. There's a you want the higher training level of your staff, looking at that patient and making a judgment call right up front very quickly. And then you can tell your first responders what you need and what they should be doing. That's a preference. Some departments require it for firefighters, not just the fire chief. Again, that's subject to change, and that's why we put in that there was a period of time that we would allow for the chief to acquire that certification. Again, I don't like doing things like that. You either require it or you don't. But in consideration of those that, you know, might have all the other training but don't have the certification of EMT, and we give them a little bit of wiggle room there.
Okay. My last question, if this job description is fulfilled by a marvelous individual who does it in 19 hours, how is he supported? With 2 deputies or assistant chief or 1 deputy? What's?
He would be
what
supported
his
with
department look like?
administrative assistant, which is in the form of a clerk. If you look at the clerk's duties, he's got a heavy load there, and that's taken a good-sized burden off the fire chief. And the other would be a deputy. My intention was to always run with a chief and 1 deputy, not 2. The reason we had 2 is because I knew I was gonna be moving on, and we'd end up in a point in time where you're gonna need a chief and another deputy. You know, someone's gonna have to take that role. So with that assistance, and/or an inspector, he's also supported with an inspector.
With the building inspector?
No,
No.
Mike does all our,
Oh, okay, the building.
not all, he does
inspecting.
most of our inspections.
What's Mike's title?
Deputy.
Deputy in
Deputy
what
chief.
slash
Inspector.
Inspector.
Yeah. Safety inspector.
I'm sorry, one more question, I promise.
No problem.
What could possibly cause us to go from $235,000 to a $500,000 budget?
We become a city.
The population staying the same,
Well,
if you can answer.
you'll hear comments like, well, if you do the job right, it's gonna cost you a lot more money. So, that's something that you're gonna have to live with. Someone's gonna make those types of criticisms of the department. I think we have one of the best departments around. Of course, the same people that criticize you were saying that, and now they're saying opposite, so, you know, you gotta make a judgment call as to where you wanna go with your budget in the future. I think that what we have is adequate for this community, and just because your neighbor does something doesn't mean you have to do it. Neighbor has a 110-foot aerial, we don't have to have a 110-foot aerial. You know, you buy what you need for your community, and that's what I've done for the past 20 years. Now, that means that you don't get all the toys and the fun things to play with when you have someone that's as conservative as the Board of Fire Engineers. So, but we get the job done, we have been doing that for the past 20 years. But it could be, you're gonna end up more than likely with a strong chief probably getting into a contractual agreement. I can see that coming. And once that happens, you're gonna be negotiating for benefits that you've never had to dealt out before, and other issues, vacation times, whatever it is. So I can see that happening in the future. And when someone looks at the workload, it might be justified, all right? But in the past, we did it because our heart was in doing the right thing for our community. There always comes a point in time where you want to get compensated, be compensated for what you've done. And I think what you're gonna find, whoever applies for that position is gonna say, you're crazy, I'm gonna do that for that kind of money. But we did. And I hope we can find someone else that will do that, I really do. Because that's how you're gonna be, that's the only way you're gonna be able to maintain that dollar, a lot of money.
I appreciate your answers, thank you.
We appreciate y'all being conservative, and the engineers, we do.
Thank you.
You just, you know, you'd like to have everything, we've seen that, everybody wants everything, but we'll give you what you need.
Well,
Keep
the
it
town's
safe.
been very good to the fire
Right,
department.
right, I
You know,
believe that too.
I don't complain there.
I always
That's
thought we
true.
had everything we needed.
We did.
Greg?
Just
Sorry,
a
I'm
quick
playing,
comment.
I'm playing.
Oh,
To
sorry.
kind of, I'm just saying, kind of, to go along with what Mr. Moore said, I think somewhere in this, you have to start out with the idea of whether this is gonna be a benefit eligible position or not, with the estimated salary in here, or else, like you said, you don't want people who are applying not knowing what they're getting into. I think you have to determine whether this is gonna be benefit eligible and what the salary is gonna be somewhere in your posting. I mean, no, we have a budget line item of what the salary is gonna be. It's kinda known, it's passed, but whether you're not gonna make this a 19-hour or lower position, again, I think you kinda have to come forward with that, make that decision.
I think the job description was based on 14, right?
It doesn't say this, I mean, right?
Right, we took that out. I took it out.
That's, oh, okay.
I'll say, usually when you apply for a job, you know, it'll say, estimated 32 hours a week, it'll give you an idea of what you're getting yourself into.
You could put that back in.
I would recommend that.
Whatever it may be, whatever your decision may be, I
I
think
don't
you
wanna,
should.
we don't
I
wanna.
thought I cleaned this up a little better too, you know? I mean, it looks,
You're gonna need 20 years of your experience to finish this up.
Like I said, that's a good starting point, I believe, you know.
I even had the chapter 48, section 42, 43, and 44
He has some good items.
added on there.
The 14, I didn't wanna bite on that, though.
I'm still on the fence about the EMT part,
Yes.
only for the fact that, you know, I mean, our only requirement on this fire department was to be first responder certified, and CPR, naturally. So I mean, again, that's nice, I agree with you, if somebody has it, it's nice. I know a lot of the guys got it when you asked them if they were interested in doing it, and there was a reimbursement program that we put in.
But an education reimbursement.
Well, basically, for every level of, like, say they got firefighter 1, firefighter 2, that gained them $1 an hour. EMT gained them $1 an hour. Officer 1 gained them $1 an hour. I think that's all we had. Is there an officer 2 as well? Okay. So, there was a potential of gaining $5 an hour, and then with every 5 years that the people stay on, they get another $1 an hour. So that was a good program. Bobby, I think, came back from the fire academy with that information way back. And I guess that was something that communities would do. For the most part, I think it's retained the department, and we probably have the best trained department around. So, everything that was done back then, I think, helped us all the way along. You know, when I was worried, I couldn't drag a 150-pound person out when my back was bothering me, so I retired, but,
Yeah.
you know,
And you know what we're talking about.
no, I know.
And it's unpredictable. It doesn't even have to be a person, it can be a hose line. You grab it the wrong way, and you get a bad back, you're in trouble.
I saw a gal jogging in South Groveland, Mike, by the ball field, with a heavy rubber tire around her neck. And I said, she must be training for a firefighting academy.
I don't
And
know what
she
it's
was
for.
going at a good clip, and I said to the gal I was walking with, it must be, to prove that she can do the job and take your hose or an individual. But, yeah, I said, and it was hot as heck. I said, God bless her. Mike, reiterate what you said about the EMTs. Do most communities have a fire chief that has the EMT title, certification, whatever you might call it?
The people that I know that do the job in the surrounding communities, it tends to be a standard.
Okay.
But to Donnie's point too, you have, well, in fact, I'm not an EMT, but I have alternate medical training where I'm very comfortable as a first responder,
Mhm.
going to any scene and, doing the job. So to your point, Donnie, I think you're right. But to answer your question, yes, the people that I deal with, chiefs, deputies,
Mhm.
But are they ones that now have ambulances? I realize Georgetown now is running an ambulance, so I would
Really
expect
doesn't-
their chief probably has one.
well, he does,
Yeah.
but I don't think that the ambulance is the determining factor. It's, you need somebody that has knowledge of the EMS system, because that's constantly evolving and changing on us. So the people you gotta be up to speed on that. But it's certainly anyone that's, works good with other people, their peers in other communities or the EMS system, they can achieve that goal, I think, too.
Donnie, do we have the authority to establish the job description, or is that still vested with the chief?
No, it's us, I
It's
believe,
us.
right? We didn't find out till our last meeting, when Brock and John came in. Brock told us that when that vote took place at the town hall, that dissolved, actually it dissolved the chief's position and the board of engineers, which we reappointed John through this month. because we thought he was on through this month, you know, but
Good thing it didn't dissolve the board of selectmen too.
Well, people are working on it.
that's coming.
Next week.
That's next week. Yeah, that's the first
Yeah.
item.
It's like an Alka-Seltzer.
In bold.
So if we have that authority, I would like to make an initial motion or at least consensus with the board about the
I wanted to
benefitable
ask
part.
one more question about being the EMT, having the EMT training. And when you arrive on the scene, do you make an assessment? Or can the first responder make the assessment also? Who's needed, what's needed, who to get here, PDQ or whatever?
The way it works is whoever has the highest level of medical on the scene is supposed to take charge of the patient. So if the highest level is a first responder, the first responder starts. If an ambulance shows up and you have an EMT, the EMT basically oversteps that. And then if a paramedic comes onto the scene, then they would overstep. So,
The clerk, how many hours on the administrative assistant slash clerk? How many, you take, give a guesstimate, please. Since you've been doing it,
We'll go 10.
but it's about 10 hours a week.
do you think more time is needed?
We used to be able to count on Jimmy Jordan for about 15 every week, you know, he was always there at like 9 in the morning till noon time, so.
So, yeah, 5 days a week, he'd be there,
I
9
mean,
days.
that's what he did.
Where
From
is
my
Jim?
experience, I could count on him if I needed him to.
I usually do like, I put about 8 hours during the week and 8 hours on the weekend.
Mhm.
I find it's better to be able to just sit down and do a block of work at a time,
Yeah.
opposed to breaking it up.
Now, is the payroll part of it, is that all on computer now?
Yes.
So it's just a matter of entering in the individuals, put the
Yes.
time in, and then it calculates it
Yeah, well, yeah.
somewhat?
There's a lot of manipulation, It's not as straightforward as one would think. I mean, you have payroll by runs, you have payroll by training sessions, you have payroll for all the different inspections. Each inspection is different, because each inspection can be a little bit different pay scale. There's just a lot of variables, And then all the logging of each run does not go into the payroll, it's into a separate program. So each run is described, and who went, how many men went, the time, date. There's a lot of input, tremendous amount of input. And our runs are up, over 600 runs. Now that's combining both stations. There's a lot of data input. There's approximately 10 different modules that you have to deal with on a daily basis.
The other question I was just thinking of now that you were mentioning that is, the income that comes from the inspections, does that go back into the fire budget, or does
No.
that just go into the town's general fund? Now, did we ever get a number on that? It's too bad we weren't telling people annually
But how much?
how much money was going back in.
It's coming in,
Like a revolving account?
Well, it's not really revolving, but the money, it's just like any, like the lease we have for the field. That money goes into the general funds, and nobody ever knows that, but any idea?
it's about 5,000 a year.
5,000 a year comes back from, and what is it we usually spend on inspections?
It's better than break even. In other words, we pay for the labor charge. to do the
Typically
inspection.
around 3.
About 3,000. All right, what was it you were saying?
Well, I feel the job description is really well put together. The only thing is if,
That's a posting description.
yeah, posting, I would like to, my opinion,
This is more so the job description.
my opinion is that it's bracketed with, hours, suggested hours and a suggested salary range.
Well, it already has that voted from the town meeting.
Say it again?
That's already been voted.
That's
Okay, I
established.
apologize.
No, but they put it in there, I mean, people don't.
Right, so
They
we'll have
wouldn't
to
know
add
that
that
when they're
in.
applying.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the EMT, I don't know, Don, what your feeling is, and Betty, what your feeling is,
Well,
on the fence with it, to be honest with you. I see the value either way, but then I see the value of relying on a strong department.
Well, basically, I mean, I guess the reason I'm thinking the way I'm thinking is that, you know, the chief's job is probably more so managing the department.
Right.
Whereas you get onto a scene, and on the fire truck, you've got an officer, usually, or whatever the highest level of private is, you know, somebody is gonna be in charge of the scene. So, you know, they establish what they can do and what they can't do. I mean, at that point, I mean, I know with you're talking the command vehicle, I mean, again, is that gonna be just parked in the station, and when we have a fire, somebody's gonna man the command vehicle and come in and be the command of the scene? I don't see that being running as a medical truck myself, but, I mean, that's what we have the ambulance company for. And the squad 1 and squad 2, I mean.
So you don't mind letting the EMT go as a minimum requirement, not having it?
Well, as far as for the chief, I mean,
For the chief.
I guess for me, I'm not looking at the chief as gonna be in there, you know, at every call, every scene, although, I mean, it's nice when somebody's right in town, ready to go, you know.
Well, would you perhaps be more comfortable with preferred?
I mean, it could be,
Preferred.
it could be preferred, or again, like you said, I mean, it could be something that you say in a year or something, let's reconsider it, or, you know, whether or not we feel it's worked.
Is that something you could just incorporate into your interviewing process?
You could, well, yeah, exactly, I mean,
What the positives and negatives of an applicant are.
right, I think the first year out, you'd probably go with a 1-year contract. I know with the fire department, we have a 6-month probationary period for anyone new coming on, but my guess is whoever takes this job's gonna have been on the department for quite a few years, you know. But again, are they gonna be able to handle all the tasks of the budgeting and, you know, all the paperwork that goes involved in it? I realize there's 40 people on the department, you know, there's people to help, you know, however you delegate the work, if you can get that to work. Like you said, most people wanna get paid for what they're doing.
It's a novel thing.
You know,
I'd like to see the EMT left in,
you would.
even during the interview process, if someone were to say they were working towards that goal and had, you know, a time frame. You know, a lot of people get teaching positions, they're working towards a master's, and I don't know, I don't know how you all feel about that, because I don't know what training everybody has, and I don't know how many people you have with an EMT certification there presently, because, excuse me? 12, you do, 12, and I just think when you're about to go into a scene and somebody's life can be hanging in the balance, person with that sort of training and expertise is who I want there.
You should also be comfortable with the fact, again, that our first responders are.
Can do just about the
You
same
should be
thing.
very comfortable, particularly with the
Mhm.
level of experience on this department and our training program.
Mhm.
And I'm confident making that statement too, just to allay some fears there.
But should this chief's position, should we expand the duties of the fire chief, or should we expand the contract and include more hours for the chief as we grow? Do we wanna be, I think this is a young man's job, and do we wanna be changing chiefs all the time? Are we gonna make it palatable for somebody to come here and do the job?
Can I say one thing about that? Sure. I'm Kurt Rashala, I'm captain, Central Fire Station. Been in the fire service for 29 years. Been on 3 different fire departments, North Carolina, Georgia, a couple in Massachusetts. And I think you're better off paying a qualified person to run the fire department and retain your firefighters in our current call format. It's gonna save you a lot of money down the road. So to say, okay, we wanna pay the chief X amount of money, I think it's short-sighted. You need to get someone in there that's gonna cultivate and promote and train and retain your call firefighters. That's where you're gonna get into money. And when your call firefighters go away, and you start bringing in full-time people, that's where you're gonna spend a lot of money for less coverage. So to say that we wanna keep the fire chiefs down here, I don't think that's where you wanna be thinking. You gotta think progressively, and bring the right person in, to cultivate, retain, and recruit your call firefighters.
And then you capped budgetarily right now though for the next year.
Well, that year goes by in a hurry.
It does, but I mean, you're hiring someone now, it's hard to make a promise for a year from now. I mean, again, this town's budget is never gonna change for the next, all that new money is going right to Pentucket and Whittier for the next foreseeable future. Just like it was this year, and like it's gonna next year, the year after. So I mean, there's not gonna be a lot of new revenue running through here. Just, it's
If
not
I could
gonna
throw in
happen.
there too, I agree with everything Kurt just said, with the one exception, I don't think, given the type of department we have, and just from our past experience, I don't think we need to throw a lot of money at this thing, at this point. You know, that small town feel, the small town department, it served us very well. As reference the report that John just gave you, we always kind of knew that we were rock bottom in the Commonwealth, yet we still get the job done. But he's right, you get the right individual there that can cultivate, bring people along, and make them wanna, yeah, we're paid employees, but you know what, there's so much volunteerism that goes along with it, you know, Don. For every hour you work, there's at least 2 that you're doing just at the station because you wanna be there. And that's what we gotta hold on to and sustain and maintain.
And I wasn't saying throw a tremendous amount of money, I'm just saying,
Right.
you know, 10-20% over, you know, whatever we're paying now, $20,000, could go a long way to retain the right individual. If they come from out of town, in town, I don't know where we're gonna be going with this, so.
That's a good point. There's no residency requirement in that posting.
Right.
I think that's something you definitely want to consider.
So leave it open.
Well, let me ask, with the town, current town bylaw though, have priority over that, or just as a basis?
It'll be a consideration. You know, again, when you're interviewing, if someone is not gonna be in town, and they can't respond to the calls 24 hours a day, then that's gonna be something against them. It's not gonna work.
I don't think we have a residency bylaw.
Oh, there's not, okay.
But you can always put it in,
I think the highway people, most of them are out of
We've always
town.
banded that around like it was,
The police have a radius.
Police have a radius.
Yeah, and it covers, you know, quite a bit of the area.
I did
outside
see in
town.
one of the ones I was looking at, I think there was a 15-mile radius.
Yeah, I think that was the, that could be the highway too, because Bob
Well,
needs them
maybe it
here
was.
for snow and ice quick.
but as they said, you can make it part of the deal by saying, you know, town residency a plus or something like that in the thing. You know,
Well, it's different from any other department though, even police, because it's an emergency
yeah.
response.
This one has a 15-mile
As is the highway
radius.
for,
Some towns do have
I
it.
just found this one.
No, a lot of towns do have it. Bigger cities definitely have it.
I was just gonna say, I'm not quite sure.
it's usually
Hazelwood is.
because they're union when they rarely have it, you know, if they're not unionized, it's either way. Usually unions.
This posting had, I didn't read all the way through it yet, but does it also cover like drug screening and things like?
No.
We probably should have.
Well, I have a lot of information. You could make that easily 4 or 5 pages. The other, call it the boilerplate if you wish, it's relevant to any type of municipal position, or federal and state position, you get all these criteria that you have to meet. And I was thinking that maybe Greg or somebody already had that, but it's readily available.
Yeah. What's that?
Maybe you're gonna doctor that up a little.
That was the intent, those are like, that's what we do in this town, and that's what we have to maintain, we're trying to maintain. There's room for, adjustment, and I'm be more than happy to sit down with the board, if they want to fine tune it, available to do that if they wish. But it wasn't meant to be a final product.
Right, no, we asked just for some ideas, and it's a good beginning. We have one from Brian Mazur also.
Yeah.
That was from 2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago? Well, that says where he did those by.
And that was where it had written at EMT.
I think we should add the drug testing too.
Yeah.
Boston Fire Department, didn't they do that after the 2 guys died?
Mhm.
Yeah, because if you don't have it, they don't have to.
And I think Haverhill has a residency requirement, even though some may live in Glasgow.
A lot, like I said, a lot of the bigger cities do. And I came up from, I mean, I still follow, my parents live in Lynch,
Right.
very contentious, they're always trying to overturn it, you fight about it, it's, residency is a big deal in bigger cities.
I read this.
They don't have.
Nobody wants to live there.
I think the reason we've always found.
Right.
Well, this one here.
We don't want people, firefighters responding from, you know, Ayers Village and Haverhill, all the way through the city of Haverhill to get to Groveland for 5, that's,
Right,
but the chief situation.
especially with the bridges are all closed down.
Well, that-
They can't get it.
Are we posting the position for what, 30 days?
30 years.
Okay.
Those that sit on the panel for choosing the fire chief will be, how will those people determined?
Well, currently it's us three.
The other panel.
Was John gonna sit on that panel? Did you offer to do that?
To do what now?
To sit on, to sit on the duty? To be part of the panel that when we receive applications and
I'd be willing to do that.
maybe one other person, so there's 5 of us? Want to think about that?
It's a good
Typically,
idea.
they have a couple of chiefs from other towns too, I've seen that.
Yeah, they did with the last sergeant's exam at the PD.
Yeah.
They were all chiefs from surrounding town.
I've been on panels like that.
Yeah.
With Oxford and
So it would be an
Actually,
oral
most of-
interview.
When they do that, do they usually have the chiefs just from other towns?
No.
They've had their own town
Oh, I'm
do it
sorry,
too?
they do.
Just other
That's
towns?
the other town.
So Betty, your idea is if there's 5 people, everyone with equal voting rights for electing the position?
Actually, it can only be you 3.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So
Say the
recommendation.
other
So they're gonna
point
make a,
priority.
so like a recommending
Mhm.
authority, a recommending committee, if you will. You know, we've gone through X amount of applications, we recommend one
There's
or 2
5
of
or
these
4
3,
or
okay.
whatever.
At
Or we
least-
think we have to open it up again because we don't
Yeah.
have the right person.
So just we get a little bit of expert advice,
Mhm.
people that know better than us. Yeah, it's a great idea. So John?
I think we've got a lot.
So I don't have to do that because.
I don't know if
usually
any of the other.
It's usually other towns.
Chief is only- But see, those weren't for chief positions, though. Those were for firefighters and full-time.
Oh, sorry.
Start a new tradition here in
Well, so we need to get the posting thing finished up. So tentatively, you're only here until the 31st this month,
Correct,
and that's all you can do.
correct.
So we need somebody, because we're not gonna have somebody by the 31st. I don't think there's not enough time to
I
do
was
that.
just gonna say, there's not 30 days between now and the 31st.
No, so we're going to need an acting chief or an interim chief, correct?
I'm gonna need an interim chief or an acting chief until the job has been filled. It looks like, what, 30 to 60 days maybe, something of that nature. We can get this posted in a week or 2, and you're still talking. I think July 1st would be a
New fiscal
optimistic
year.
turnaround time. Be good, if you start in the fiscal year, but, but
Well, if you have to post for 30 days, though, it can't be
Too
July
close.
1st.
You
We're
have
gonna
to
have
do
to
30
meet
or
again.
With the
Because then
20th
your
of May.
applications will come in, you know, by the end of the 30 days.
the interview process and all that.
Yeah.
Do you have to do 30 or try to use
Or
one?
maybe August 1st if you're, into it good?
Well, you're probably gonna need an interim chief for, bigger 3 months.
What'd you
You
say?
have to do 30, or you do a posting for 14 days.
Our personnel bylaw requires a 10-day posting, but I think they wanna give time for people to see it and everything, right?
Well, if the town bylaw is 10 days,
If you wanna do 2 weeks, we'll shorten it at least.
So we won't be shocked.
How do they normally do it in the first time, when they go with senior person? That's an
This,
intro.
I've never been exposed
We've
to
never
that.
had a.
Never
No.
done.
No.
10 days seems to be a short turnaround. Because by the
That's all
time
the
you,
law requires,
yeah, but by the time you get it out,
right.
people don't have time to
No,
respond.
I agree with you, a top position should be
Mm.
posted so people are made aware of it. They can't say, well, I didn't even know, and,
Right,
it's
yeah.
over and done.
So,
So if we finalize this and post it by, let's say, June first, tell us a little bit how we're gonna end up with an interim chief. What's your
well, I
recommendation?
think at this point, you want the smoothest transition as you can get. And something that's relatively, what they call, transparent. I guess that's the word that people use now.
Unencumbered,
Unencumbered.
do you like that one?
Uh,
I think we need an interim chief, this is my opinion, who has no intention of applying for the
Yeah,
position.
well,
That's exactly what I was thinking.
That has come up before, and it's been discussed, and that's difficult, because very often what you have is someone that could do the interim chief position, and then would also want to apply for the position later on, so it's a tough one. So, why don't we just go back to what would be the smoothest transition, period? You know, I'm talking the bridge, I'm not talking 60 days from now. From this point to July 1st, we have to close out our budget, our fiscal budget. Right? We also have to maintain our inspections and do all the paperwork and bookwork on that. To bring another party in at this point in time that's not familiar with that would be very disruptive. Would be difficult dealing with it. So if Mike as the inspector and myself as clerk were to continue during that period of time, that would be the smoothest transition that I can think of. So my recommendation is to have the inspector, Mike, Deputy Captain Ellis, be the interim fire chief. We work together, he does the inspections. To have somebody else come in signing inspection slips doesn't make sense. He signs the inspections. And we've been working for 15 years together, doing that. So I see that part of it. That's the interaction with the public. So as long as you keep that going smoothly, that part of it will be addressed. But if I stay on as clerk, I think we can get it done very, very, very smoothly.
So because my big concern coming up obviously is the May 31st payroll. I wanna make sure these guys are paid.
Absolutely.
So I need someone over there who can get that over to.
That's right. That is,
That's my big concern coming up for you.
yes,
The June one's a little one, they don't care
that's
about
my
that check.
big concern also.
The May 31st one, they like that
That's
one.
right. And I don't wanna have to think about dealing with another entity at this point in time, and something that could be disruptive to the procedure to get us through to July 1st. So I see that as the.
Does that mean Mike wasn't interested in applying for the chief?
Well, that's, I can't speak for Mike. And I don't think that that precludes anyone, legally or otherwise, from applying for the position. But I don't even wanna go there at this point. I just wanna get through till July 1st, get all the books in order, and then July 1st or shortly thereafter, the board will select who they want for the next chief.
You might have to check legally if you can put that restriction on somebody.
Asking them to be interim chief and to not participate in the
Yeah,
process.
that's kinda
Yeah, I just
a
didn't know
question
if,
mark to me.
right, I don't know.
We couldn't do it on the school committee, we've got people in interim positions and then applying for jobs, so I don't think,
Yeah, I just,
I don't think it's, I don't know if we need to do that, but I don't think there's a legal way to do that anyways.
I think it's kind of like an honor system, like when they appointed the senator to replace Senator Kerry. The guy could have run for it, but he said he wouldn't, but it was kind of like an honor thing. I don't think you could have stopped anybody from running,
No, because
or
we-
applying for a job.
Right,
I don't think
exactly.
you can.
Are any of the people in this room interested in applying for the chief's job? Should I even ask that question?
Good
You
question.
know,
You can ask.
Kurt,
mean,
I don't qualify. Period.
Me,
Age-wise, I don't qualify, and
I'm gonna get retired and
experience-wise, I
start running
don't.
around town.
Yes.
You are, Bob?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Al?
No, not for me.
I'm on the fence, probably not.
Chief, you're gonna defer your retirement?
I tried to. It didn't work.
Yes.
You are.
I just don't want anybody to feel like they're at a disadvantage, that it's a level playing field for everybody.
I'm more concerned
Despite what you
doing-
hear about me, I do try to be fair.
Maybe Al should be the interim chief, and Mike can still do inspections.
I have no desire to be the interim chief, although I do think we have a good candidate, seniority-wise, in Mr. Lay, as far as being the interim fire chief.
So Bob would be the senior person on the fire department, correct?
I believe it would be.
I have 29 years, he has more than me by about 11.
Are there others out there that aren't in the room this evening, do you think? I mean, you've heard scuttlebutt, I'm sure. People probably have come right out and said that they'd like to apply for the chief's position.
Well, I
You
think-
can have a pool of candidates within the department,
No, I don't think so. I think you're limiting yourself with the education required here.
really.
Yes. Having a preference of a bachelor's degree,
Uh-huh.
I think it's
That
probably.
narrows the in-house field to 3 or 4 guys.
3 or 4 guys.
How about years of experience? Is it a degree or years of experience? Is that what?
That's not what this
It
says.
doesn't say that. Right.
It says a minimum of associate's degree and a bachelor's degree is preferred.
It doesn't say bachelor's degree in what, does it?
Fire science or business management or a related field. So right there, you're limiting your pool of in-house folks.
Cool down.
Either of you guys cover those? No?
What?
Either of these two guys fall in that category of having that degree?
who are you pointing at?
Bob or Mike?
I have a 4-year degree, bachelor's.
It's just, we have a lot of people with a lot of great experience in the fire department, and, but we don't have a lot of people that have gone to formalized education after high school. So it's just something to keep into consideration, when you're making that decision.
So maybe we should just meet again later this week and look at this.
There's nothing in here about management, really about management firms. I think that's more important than a degree at this point. Especially when you're dealing with, folks that have experience in the fire service.
Good input.
Yeah, lots of times you'll see, I'm sure you've seen in your well written, related experience can count towards degrees and things like
Right,
that.
exactly.
You can
Yes.
always tweet it that way if you
Right.
want.
I believe that's how it was written in the
Mhm.
description anyway.
And I think it's I think it's necessary, because you're gonna exclude a lot of good people, I think, if you don't.
I know we had a
A
meeting
lot of
Thursday.
people with degrees that don't even have jobs.
That's true, that's true.
Are you available Thursday?
I will be available around 6:30 and beyond, the later the better.
Yeah, because you have Iron's meeting at 6 o'clock on Thursday.
Alright, so why don't we?
That'll
post it
probably go
6:30?
till, well, you might wanna make it 7. Because you've got both the engineers coming in, a couple citizens coming in, so it might take a little longer than normal.
We meet here, Don?
Yeah.
Is it a public meeting or? Yeah. Okay.
For what purpose, to review
To
the
review
documents?
the posting and job description.
And maybe tweak this,
And maybe make a few changes so that,
so we're not like
so,
outsmarting ourselves here with this.
right. good?
Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good meeting.
I have a question. We're going to be meeting again before June first?
Thursday.
Thursday night.
Thursday?
What's that, the 23rd? 23rd of May?
Now, you're still able to stay on as the clerk after you retire as the chief, right?
That's my understanding.
You're gonna make that May 31st payroll.
That's right.
Make
Right.
me
Well,
happy.
is that something, I mean, I don't, can we appoint him until at least, or is he already appointed by doing the clerical job?
You appointed him, I don't know if you
Appointed
counted
him
him to
last-
June 30th, did you? Did you appoint him all the way through June 30th, the clerk?
No, they appointed John as the chief until, through May 31st.
Right, but as far as he was doing the clerical job as well, I don't remember whether that was done by appointment.
That's well, that, now it becomes the chief's hire, under the new model, right? He applies, all his employees get
Right,
picked.
but what I'm getting at is I just wanna make sure that we have him appointed until June 30th, so that we get through this budget season.
He's an employee, he can stay on as long as the chief replaces him or keeps him on. I mean, he wouldn't just stayed on if the, well, the
Didn't
chief-
have to be reappointed.
He's an employee, as far as I know.
So you're available for that. Thank you. All right.
That's that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was that the new vehicle or something that's going into that payroll?
Turn it over yet?
I don't know that. We're not involved in the process.
Anymore?
Oh.
Yeah.
You the doorman?
I'm the doorman. Add to the majority.
And you did leave it for us.
I can read.
Good?
No, I can't. Oh, I am. I can't discuss it until another meeting.
Where you put a hat on, you thought we wouldn't recognize you?
There you go. What are you leaving for?
Oh, you guys came in, I'm leaving.
Okay, right, come on, let's stay.
Oh.
You don't get hats. This is what you get for spending $2 million on water tank. You
Is
get a hat.
that, you get those?
I thought those were Stanley Cup hats.
Not yet.
We'll get you hats if you want.
That's all right. All right, this meeting, by the looks of it, we will need to go into executive session. I don't see that we have anything else that we had to do after.
Do you have to go in?
What's that?
Do you have to go in? I don't know that you do. I said if you have to.
Oh, okay. Do we need to go into executive session on this, or are we all open now?
Everybody knows what's going on now.
We're not talking about money at all.
Okay.
There's nothing on here about money, so I would say probably not.
I didn't know if there was gonna be any discussion with the purchase and sales. That's why I put that there.
Okay.
You know, if something, because we haven't finalized them to the best of my knowledge.
Yes.
No, yeah.
So,
So that's the first thing we're talking about, as you see on this page one. These are all Greg's comments on purchase and sales. So. But I don't know, Greg, I don't think any of this stuff is touchy, do you think?
Secret.
I'm pretty sure a couple on, one on Mr. Bussing's is gonna become touchy.
well, what to do is put that at the end, and then Charlie can shut it off at the end of, you know, your list. Move that down to the bottom of your list. Can you do that?
Yeah, we can put off talking about the purchase and sales stuff.
All right, so what do you have first?
All right, so on page 2, there's some information there about the closing dates and what they depend upon. I'm sure there's a few other things that need to be done, but there's really no holdup on busing except the 21E inspection of the property. And the other two are the 21E, but the other two are waiting on grants and the permits and zoning issues on Angelini's for the turf removal. So, I think either Greg said or John Eichman said to separate these out, right? Not have them all at the same time.
The what, the 21 days?
Closings.
Closings? Oh, I didn't, that's irrelevant to me.
Oh, I think the main thing he was saying was make sure that you had enough time to get your grants approved,
Yeah,
so that you didn't miss grants because of
Right.
closing dates.
well, that's why I say October 1, I don't see it happening before October 1.
On the grants?
Mattingly and Angelini, I don't think we're gonna know until then, or get the money available till then. But busing can, as soon as we're ready and as soon as the finances are in place, we can go forward on that.
Why does it take till October? I don't understand.
Well, because these are federal grants,
Yeah.
and they take forever to approve them. So, and you cannot buy it until they tell you, you know, they may say you have the grant, but then it's like until they award you the grant, you can't actually buy it.
We're gonna know by July 15th.
Well, we're gonna know by July 15th if we don't have it, but we won't know, like, on July 15th, they're either gonna say, no, you don't have it, so you don't have to worry about it, or they're gonna say, you might have it.
So we're in the running.
Yes,
On
right.
July 16th, we haven't heard from them, we're in the running for it.
No, they're gonna tell me by then.
Oh, by then, okay.
They'll say, you're still in the running,
Okay, good.
you might get it. And then hopefully by August 15th, they'll tell us if we've got it or not, and then hopefully sometime in September, they'll release the funds. So that's that. On the 21E inspections, I know we wanna get it for all three, but, it's a question of how we're gonna pay for these things. I know already that Mattingly is not paying for it, but we haven't negotiated that with the other two. So I would suggest that we ask town council to try to make that a negotiation point.
Excuse me, do you have anything on that?
Well, I figured where we'd be going with all this tonight, so I took the list that Tom gave me,
Yeah,
called one and just said, gave him a hypothetical, what we're talking about. I wanted to see if the 21Es would, how much they were gonna cost us, whether it became a biddable thing, we had to go out and chase it. I did talk to one gentleman that was on the list of Mike's, the more local one, and, I told him we were talking, he was basically for all, I'm calling it 4 parcels, because Angelina
Yeah.
has 2. He seemed fairly confident that he could do all of them, including the 2 were potential for water wells, which would be subsurface testing, for under 10,000.
for all 4.
All of them.
I didn't think that was a negotiation tool, I thought it was.
Well,
part
I
of
look
the-
at it this way, it's
part
like,
of, the
it's like a
seller's
home
responsibility.
inspection.
Exactly.
the buyer pays for the home inspection, it's just, I mean, I don't think that's a big deal, and I think it falls within the category of CPA admin.
Okay.
I don't think this, and it's not, like I said, I was very concerned, I wanted subsurface testing, not just reviews of maps and histories and things like that, which I guess the 21 usually is, especially for those 2 parcels where the potential for water wells is. He said they could do some subsurface probing and testing.
Jim, did you say you thought the seller was responsible for the 21E?
Yeah.
Greg, you just said the buyer
Well, you can
was
make, I mean, every time I bought a house, I paid for my own home inspection. I look at this,
That's a home inspection, we're talking about providing a clean piece of property.
but this is like a home inspection for land, isn't it?
It's exactly what it is.
That's how I look at it, that, I mean, you can make it a negotiable point.
But don't both, sometimes both parties do a
Sure.
home, if I'm selling it, I wanna make sure
You
it's.
can make it a negotiable point, it just in my mind, every time I've ever bought a house, I paid for it.
I thought Eichman commented on
You did.
21Es, what did he say?
Yeah, actually, it's in the PNRs that they're responsible for it. So if that's not gonna be the case, then you.
Well, no, I'm just saying, throwing
I'm
out
just saying,
there,
if you're gonna put up a PNS, then.
is it the best idea to have the person who you're buying from the property from paying the inspector you're relying on? Because obviously they want a clean bill of health, they're gonna pick a guy who gives you a clean bill of health.
Yeah, but that's a big risk to
Yeah.
put your name on something that
That's right.
comes back
It
and
is, I
bites
mean,
you in the.
I was just checking to see what the cost was gonna be, how it gets paid is really relevant to me.
Yeah, well, and the fact is, it doesn't matter to me,
They
either,
should
but it's in the
tell
PNS now,
Well, they say
so it
if you
needs,
buy
it would need to be
All
addressed.
3 of the sellers are gonna.
I don't know about the other 2, I know that Angelina's is.
They haven't asked to remove it from the other two. They haven't brought it up, so
Okay.
as far as we know, they're gonna pay for it.
Okay.
I didn't, there was another piece of land that we said, unless it was clean, we weren't interested.
Right, that's why you do the
So-
21E review.
Right. And that was incumbent upon them, the seller,
Right.
Provide it for us?
to,
Yeah.
to tell us that it was,
Oh, no, like I said, I don't have a problem with it.
yeah. Okay.
It's like, I'm trying to treat this like as I'm going through the process of how we're gonna do this.
Right.
I'm at the point, looking at it, that all we've got right now is income verification. We've got a way to pay for it. Now it's the home inspection and then actually paying the bill and finding someone to loan me the money. So I'm just kind of progressing it that way. So,
Well, you're gonna have to convince the bank to loan you the money,
only on busing.
only on busing.
The other two,
CPA.
well, the other one, I had it added in part about where the funding sources wasn't listed on the PNS, but we'll get to that when we get to that part of it.
What about the Heritage Grant? Is that
That's what I'm
already
talking about.
applied for?
Yeah, that's,
Natural heritage?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's not a grant, that's,
No, those are funds that are just sitting there that would be, we can apply to the Angelini property. And Natural Heritage pretty much already knows a piece of property.
That one's going to Mattingly, right?
I'm sorry, Mattingly. And that, it's just a matter of getting the P&S and then Woody following that up with an application process to them.
So we haven't initiated that application yet.
I don't have the P&S. Yeah. So once we get a signed P&S, that can go to Woody, and then he can follow up that application process.
okay. The recordable plans, the water department's working on the one for Angelini and Mattingly. And I asked Tom Needy to get us for busing, and he said he's gonna provide that, so we're all set. I'm working with, Essex County Greenbelt on the conservation restriction. I think the toughest part is gonna be the earth removal plans, but I haven't sent anything to, them about that yet. But on Mattingly, I have a letter from the State Historic Commission regarding some language they want in there for, there's some issues there with it.
Mill?
No, it's with a, let's see, what the heck was it? It's a, Native American archaeological sites are there. So they gotta put that in there. But that can go in the
What
CR.
property is that?
Yeah.
Really? It's not a burial ground.
That's standard language that's out.
There's nothing to do with due diligence,
I'm sure there's nothing.
Yeah, it didn't.
It's all a Logan Hempel Act.
It didn't sound terrible. As far as grants are concerned, let's see. So I already told you we're waiting to hear on $240,000 for Mattingly, $250,000 for Angelini. Yeah, 250. Unfortunately, I found out last week that they didn't like our warrant articles because they didn't reference the grant exactly how they wanted it referenced. So we're gonna have to have a town meeting vote to accept the grants if we get them. So I would just suggest waiting till we hear if we're gonna, if there's even a chance of us getting them. And
Like, who didn't like the way the warrants were written?
the state, the EOEEA. I don't know why, because it didn't have it in the RFP for some reason, but when she saw our warrant articles, she said, oh, you didn't reference Land and Water Conservation Fund grant.
Oh, she should. Okay.
So, and then I've got 3 small grants organizations that I'm gonna apply for some more money for all 3 companies. They've given us money before, so. we might net $40,000 or $50,000 out of that, so it's worth doing. Oh, here's a question, which I don't think, I think I know the answer to it, but that same department said we should apply for the land grant, which is, those are potentially $500,000 grants, but we wouldn't be able to buy the properties until February 1st. And I don't see that anybody's willing to wait until February 1st.
If we got those
Yeah,
grants, we might,
yeah,
and we also got the land, the other grant.
yeah.
Will the other grant allow you to extend the closing until that late?
Yeah, there's no limit on that. That doesn't have to be done until 2015. So it doesn't interfere with that. It's really only whether the sellers would be willing to wait that long.
It's up to 500K each.
Yeah,
It'd be worth investigating that to see if it's.
I mean, I already applied for Mattingly before last year, so it would be fairly easy to apply for it. And Angelini, you know, I've got the LWCF grant already, so it's not just has to be changed a little bit for that one. And we would know probably around October whether or not we got it, so. You know, I mean, timing wise,
Did I misunderstand you? I thought you said February.
Yeah.
no, they do award the money in February, but they
You know
would
when.
tell us
Okay,
by
all
October.
right.
You just have to wait.
Okay, thank you.
And it could be $500,000?
Each.
Or if we get all the grants, basically we make out.
It's worth getting those.
Is that the grant we applied for before?
You don't really.
Angelini?
No, we
No.
applied for, the ALA grant, which is the Aquifer Land Acquisition, which the state hasn't funded that.
Yeah.
Right, I didn't think so. But it was the same money though, right? That kind of money?
Hmm?
It was that kind of money.
Yeah, they used to fund, well, it was $5 million plus per year.
So, you know, it's probably worth doing, even if we, you know, we'll have to see time-wise when we come down to the end where we're at.
I think it's worth doing. I would support that.
As far as the development plans of the property, I put on here in each case, it's not too difficult with the Mattingly and Angelini ones because they're gonna have the conservation restriction on them, so there's pretty much restrictions in place, so I know that open space and trails is definitely gonna start working on trail development for both of those properties. But for the busing property, there's, you know, a lot of advocates who are pushing recreation and, you know, other related stuff and then open space. So I think that what I'm proposing here is that Open Space and Trails Committee would collect a bunch of input from all of these folks and then put together some initial plan and bring it to you guys, since you guys are the ones who will be making decisions on it. If that sounds all right with you.
Should they start this before we buy it, or should
No,
we?
they won't start it before we buy it.
All right. And that would be the right process once we
Yeah,
own it.
yeah.
You know, if people have ideas. I think Bruce wants to put 40 housing units there, right in the front.
Yeah.
With a toll plaza for anyone wanting to go out and use the fields.
$10 a night.
Is there any other, no purchase and sale items, Greg?
Just what I sent out, when I read them over the weekend, that's all I came up with.
That's just what you put there. That's what I put all in that table. So, I suppose that we need to go into executive session to talk about all this stuff.
A general question. Credit facility to borrow the money, how long does it take? What's the timing of it? How much does it cost?
The one we're borrowing on is the busing property.
Yeah,
I can begin the process once July first hits, because
Yeah.
it was done at an annual town meeting. The first review process is to submit all our warrant articles and certified votes and funny things off to the financial advisors and the bond council. Once they okay everything, you'll go to bid
right.
for the interest rate, and the financial institutions will request information, whether it be whatever sometimes they don't request anything. Sometimes they'll have a request for appraisals, whatever they'll have, and they'll go to bid on the process, and the winning bid will be the one who loans us the money. That usually takes probably 2 to 3 weeks to go through that process. So once you start July first, usually you get a good idea, you're ready to go out for bid by August first. And then they'll get right, really, the bid's opening for like 2 or 3 days, that's all it is. They just throw it on the market, right back with it.
And so the bid, excuse me, the grant acquisition really has no play in it because it's rather small anyways with the 3 that Mike is looking for.
Well, if you got a grant on busing after we borrowed the money?
Yeah. Even though it's small, let's say 40,
Well,
50,000.
I would suppose there'll be refunding language in there. I suppose you'd have to hold it in some sort of escrow and use it to pay down the debt, where it's a debt exclusion.
Right, okay.
But you can't really prepay down a bond until there's a refunding schedule. You're in the industry, you know, there's like a certain timeline that they expect to collect a certain amount of interest as part of the deal. So you probably have to hold it and then
I think
use it to pay down at that point.
the grants that Mike was talking about don't pay for land purchase. They deal with development for
Okay.
recreation and other facilities.
In that case, it would.
So it might be for trail development.
Yeah,
for,
the small ones, like
kiosks.
Stevens and Cricket and Fields Pond, they've helped us before. Those would go just to the development.
Well, yeah, they don't put any restrictions on those, so we could use them to reimburse ourselves for CPA administrative funds, for instance, or, you know, we could use them for trail development.
Sure. Or we can reimburse ourselves for 50,000 to set up the bond facility.
Right, yeah.
That's what it will cost about, right?
Well, you guys would have to accept, either you or town meeting, depending, I would have to accept the grant anyways.
Okay.
Then you designate where it goes.
All right.
All right, before we go into executive session, I just wanted to see, Betty, were you okay with the minutes from the 29th and the 6th? Because if we approve those, when we come back out of executive, we don't have anything on, except signing. Would you like to
Make a motion to accept those from the April 29th meeting and the May 16th.
And I'll second that, because Joe wasn't here. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, to make a motion, we go into executive session under Mass General Law 30A, Section 21A, number 6, to consider the purchase or value of real property. If chairman declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. And we can second that.
Second your motion, yes.
All in favor, Granny, yes?
Gorski, yes.
Joe, yes? Good morning, yes.
Okay, that's it, Charlie, thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Good job, Charlie. Nobody's leaving, right? I can just lock and put the letter on the side of it.
Do you guys need to go?